coming to you today with a new topic of discussion. Check on in. I should really start doing, like, I don't like to do preempt lives, but I figured I'd do it today because some profound things have happened since traveling. So I'll wait until a few more people check in. I know you don't know I'm on, so I'll wait because it doesn't look like anyone's on. If no one checks in, I'm gonna start the topic anyway, okay? So check on in. If you check in, let me know you're here. Wow. It says no one's here. That's such a rarity. Maybe I should just start the topic. I hate to start when no one's in the house. That's interesting. There you go. Hey, Hey, Candy. Hey, Juno. Hey, Aaron. Hey, Soul. I was wondering where you guys were. It's telling me like no one's in here. Now it only says 2 people are here, but I'm seeing everybody. Check on in. Hey, Shawanda. Hey, Marilyn. Hey, Jasmine. Hey, Melissa. Oh gosh, you have a meeting at 3? Oh, it's 12:12 now. Hey, everybody. Hey, Mr. Amazing. Check on in. I know I haven't been here for a while. I was traveling for so long. Aloha, Nisha. For so long. And I finally just made it back home, but I'll be traveling again. Do you have a Sagittarius in your life? Do you always feel like you have to run with them everywhere? Welcome to our world, okay? Check on in. I'll wait until 500 check in. So, you know, I want to say hello to everyone. You were just in Sao Paulo. Oh my gosh. Hello from Sao Paulo. Listen, I just got home. So what has it been, a day? I've been traveling, and many of you know I traveled from all the way from Sao Paulo to Bahia by car, and absolutely, this is why this conversation is so relative. I was activated, triple activated geometrically. And we're gonna kind of talk about that right now. So I'm fine. It was a beautiful, beautiful time, and many of you know I was in, I think, 5 different countries. I'll be in another country in a couple days. You'll hear about that. But I think I was in 5 different, was it in 5 different countries? Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, and the United States. I don't count that, right? 5 different countries, and I'll be in a 6th country in a couple days. So check on in. It's a lot of traveling. So I'm grateful to be home, be able to sleep in my bed, but the traveling through Brazil, and let me give a biggest shout out to Brazil. Brazil, you haven't ever disappointed. I mean, we party like rock stars. Big up to my family in Brazil. A big, what is it? Afternoon with you guys? Bom tarde. Okay. So you know when I go to Brazil, because I look so like refreshed, but that traveling kicked my butt, y'all. Flew back in through Mexico. So big up to everyone. Oh, I see a flag there. Colombiana's in the house. What up, L? Yeah, we flew in through Bogota. Big up to the Colombianas, big up to the Argentinians, big up to, of course, Brazilians, and big up to the Chileans, okay? And big up always to the Mexicanos, okay? Representing. So I was all through Latin America, y'all. All through. And really in itself, why I'm making this video is that there was an activation, and I'm going to talk about how because of the jumping domes energetically, I cracked the, hey Selma. Selma's in the house from Canada. I cracked the dome. I don't feel like maybe I didn't crack it, but what I ended up doing is piercing the different domes, allowing access, which normally you would have to travel into the dome to have access to what's inside the dome. We talked about this before when I was in, where was I in? Belo Horizonte, Bella Horizonte. I was in Brazil when I had this conversation with you about jumping domes. And because of that, geometrically, like we'll get, I don't want to start the conversation. Let's wait until everybody texts in. Let's talk to everybody. I want to give a shout out to everybody. Had an amazing time in South America, visited 5 different countries, amazing people, amazing food, thebomb.com. Okay. As you know, I always travel with my family, and this time had a chance to drive from the central part of Brazil all the way to Bahia. I've traveled all the way across Bahia before, but I traveled with my family by car, which I don't, you know, everybody thinks it's scary. I grew up in New York City, y'all. I grew up in New York, you know, driving. Someone was like, oh my God, how could you drive with your children through Brazil? Do you realize I grew up in New York? Do you know what it's like driving on the Hutch or the Bronx River? Big up to all the New Yorkers in the house. Who's my New Yorkers? Do you ever driving on the Hutch at night coming from a club? Okay. You ever drove on the Bronx River when it's raining and flooded? You ever gone on the west side with the traffic up the Gazoo all the way to the bridge? The FDR, you can nearly die on it every time you drive on it. You ever drove through Jersey City trying to go across and trying to get over the Holland Tunnel? So I'm just saying, y'all. When people ask me, oh my God, how could you drive through Brazil? Oh, you're so reckless, so dangerous. Have you ever been to Brazil? If you haven't been there, just shh. Let me say this again. Have you been to Brazil? Shh. Okay? I've been to Brazil. I always drive in Brazil. I've been driving always there. I've driven in New York my whole life. I got my driver's license in Yonkers, New York, and you already know that was a task in itself. Okay? So I'm okay. And driving through Brazil was absolutely the most breathtaking, most mind expanding, and the reason why I can have this conversation with you today. So, if you haven't traveled through Brazil, don't judge it until you try it. Big up to everybody in the house. Big up to New York. Big up to the Bronx. Big up to Manhattan. Okay? Come on in, y'all. I'm waiting until we get to 500. I'm saying if you could drive in New York, you could drive anywhere. What'd you say? If you were a driver from New York, you could drive in hell. West 44B said it. You were so correct. What? I remember young, I got my license and I thought I could drive, and I went on that Bronx River following behind my friends in their cars. I swear I was going to hit the guardrail. I was so close to the guardrail. I was stopping traffic. Woo! Big up to everybody who got their license in New York. I got it in Yonkers, New York, and that was a feat. I'm surprised I got a license. Anyway, hey Gambia, Africa's in the house. Whoop whoop. Africa's in the house. Whoop. You got your driver's license in the Bronx, the hardest. Listen, West 40, you already know. Yonkers in the Bronx, to me, is very similar terrain. You basically have to close your eyes and hope that you pass, because parallel parking, having people behind you, trying to get through traffic, trying to get in those narrow streets with potholes and everything. Potholes in my lawn. Remember that? Potholes in my lawn. And yes, Brazil did justice to my hair. It was like, your hair grew back. My hair, gratefully, y'all, my hair grows back like a weed. So when I cut my hair, Brazil, let me shout out to Brazil. Brazil and Argentina, I give them credit for my hair growing so much faster. That water and I learned how to dance forró, for anyone who's from Brazil. I'm a great Latin dancer, as many of you know. I'm not shy to say that I can really dance, okay? Salsa, merengue, cumbia, bachata. My father was an amazing Latin dancer, and my mom. So I basically had inherited some innate dancing qualities, and then I was trained. So an innate Latin dancer, I have natural skills coming from my genetics, right? Island people who could you said weave or weed. I don't wear weaves. No, this is hair. You know, not every woman of color wears weaves. This is another thing. Let me just, you know, I love when you trigger me because, you know, I have until 500. So y'all, please mark the time when we get to 500 so that people know when we start the conversation. I'm just chopping it up with you now. Not every woman of color wears weaves. You know, I really think it's really sad. Scotty Boy said he's joking. I know you are, but I'm just saying, a lot of people think that most brown women wear weaves. That's not true. And lunar women wear weaves too. It's just, it depends. Some girls like to wear the different styles and so on, you know. They like to change it up. You know what I'm saying? I rarely cut my hair. You know, I haven't seen me with shorter hair since maybe, when I started YouTube, right? My hair was about this length on YouTube, remember? Remember when I was on YouTube, guys? About, what, 2011? My hair was about this length because I cut it. Because I used to cut it more, like, especially after I had my babies, my hair grows wild, like weaves. So usually when I have the babies, my hair is down to my butt, like when I was just pregnant, 2 years, you know, almost 2 years ago. So my hair grows really long. So I usually cut it because it's a lot. And it gets really thick and curly when I'm pregnant, as many of you notice. And then I kind of just cut it and then let it just grow back. But it grew pretty, you know, Brazil and Colombia really does do justice for your hair. Like, big up to the women of color up in Brazil. You want to talk about women who love their hair? I don't care if they're, people say, oh, it's because, no. These women of color, because, you know, they have all these different texture types of hair, 4C, 4B, whatever the standard is. These women got hair that you rock, like the bigger the froze, like the bigger the fro, the bigger the hair, the fro, the coarser, the kinkier. Yo, they sweat your hair. Like, it was like, I'm serious. People don't think that. Like, in Rio, they love big hair. Like, I'm telling you. So what is a standard of beauty for here in the States as women of color is totally different. Because when you go abroad to places where women love their hair and they're not subjected to marginalization based on the thickness and the beautiful velocity of their hair. Listen, chicks, listen, I was trying to get my hair bigger in Brazil. I was trying to get that, you know, because my little ones have beautiful coily hair. I was trying to get that fro, y'all, because they were rocking it. So big up to my Brazilian women. Y'all love your hair. They love the puffs. It is beautiful. Straight, even the women, lunar hair, they got the curly hair. They like their curls. The lunar women, because, you know, they have that little mixture in them. They love their curls. So it's beautiful to see women who really love their natural hair. And when I say natural, just women of color have some of the most unique, beautiful hair. And I don't think they really know it. But God darn it, in Brazil, you mother freaking know your hair is the bomb when it's thick. You trying to get that 4C hair. You trying to pump out that fro. You trying to get your coils like to stand up like a tree, you know, like the trees. Yeah. Anyway, are we almost to 500? I know I'm talking to y'all. So big up to everybody in the house. I'm just chopping it up. Body and linky hair, yo, it's crazy. So I'll wait until we get to 500. I know people start coming, you know, when they not on the live with us and they come and they want to know when I start so they can kind of get to the real topic. You know, we're just kind of, there's no Zika babies. Who said, let me explain something, y'all, before we get to 500. Everyone, the government is lying to you. They don't want you to travel. Do you understand? Do you understand that, you have to understand that there are so many lies that they will tell you. Oh, Brazil is like a third world country. Don't go to Argentina. They're poor. Their lives are... Listen, we were singing in the snow in Argentina. Because, you know, Argentina like to rock. It doesn't get light until it's... daylight starts at 9/11 in the rising. And they stay up late. We were rocking it out at midnight while snowing in Argentina. That mother freaker was like a... You ever go to a party, a house party? That sucker kicked off at 10 p.m. in Argentina, and we were rocking it out. Brazil is the same. Brazil is very, very, very beautiful, and the people are so helpful. And I will say to you, I don't care what they say, Zika, I didn't see any Zika baby. I saw a whole bunch of active children that were off the chain in Brazil, because, you know, in Brazil, they just let the children get buck wild. Okay? So they were absolutely beautiful, healthy babies. Please don't listen to the lies here. Just like they're telling you, oh, you can't drive in Brazil, there's no roads. I drove 20 hours, 23 hours in one direction, 23 hours in the next direction. Obviously, I'm here to tell the story, okay? And the most beautiful terrain you will ever see in your life, okay? So when the government is telling you, oh, don't go to Brazil, don't go to Argentina, Chile. Chile has a better economy than us. They have their money's worth more than us. They're not going to tell you that, okay? They're not going to tell you that Argentinians, even though they're struggling economy-wise, the people are so happy, friendly, and it's celebrating. No one's going to tell you in Brazil, when you party and dance in Brazil, everyone is your family, okay? So stop listening to the lies, okay? These are the same people that say brown is black. And pink is white. Woo! Come on in. We almost to 500. So we're going to talking about, I did take notes. You'll be proud of me. I've rested, so I decided we're going to talk more about this on Zoom tonight. So, you know, you're always welcome to come to the after party on Zoom, which is a forever party, because, you know, the Zoomies be on for days after we're done. Okay? Oh, let's talk about Trump real quick, right? Should we talk about Trump afterwards? Should we make that okay, so I'll wait until we get to 500. I'll talk about Trump. Many of you know about this so-called assassination attempt of your previous president, right? Also, you saw that Biden supposedly, no, I make up words, y'all. I'm from New York, so stick with me. Supposedly stepped down from his position. Okay, rather he was forced, because did you see the debate between the firecracker we call previous President Trump, the burning towers, against Biden, who looked like he drank the Kool-Aid at that meeting of Jim Jones and actually survived it? That was absolutely horrific. Okay, so after that catastrophe, and I purposefully think that everything is orchestrated, y'all. They wanted you to see him as a buffoon. The setup, you already saw the Simpsons episode with the girl with the beads looking like Mr. Kamala. Okay, so you already knew that. We already knew the setup was going to be to put Mr. Kamala up front, looking real thick in the neck. Okay, her stepdaughter looks like Satanist. She's a masochistic Satanist. You know, is off the chain. Okay, looking like she could take you down as a football player in her previous life. All right. So we already knew what the setup was. Biden wasn't going to take the position, and they probably threatened his life. Probably said, yo, you're going to step down, partner, because you know, I think it was all set up. Everything's orchestrated, y'all. There's nothing happening by chance. Okay. And all the freaking coons. Yeah, I said it. All the coons, what do you call them? The Negrotarians, who only support people who have brown hue skin, even if they were worshiping the devil the day before. Okay, all of the coons, the Negrotarians, and of course you got to put in the feminazis who like to put pink pussy hats on Harriet Tubman. They are all excited right now. Okay, they are all supporting the madness of the Matrix, which is all a simulation and all set up. Okay, so if you think that Mr. Kamala is something that is going to be your hero, just look at her track record. Okay, just look at that. And if I see another pink pussy hat on Harriet, listen, I personally think, my prediction is they're gonna put her up front. She's going to act like she's running, but guess what? You know who they're going to have? Hillary. If they get Hillary in this, you're going to have Ebony and Ivory set up as the kill shot. So the Negrotarians will be appeased by a fake brown woman, because she does not claim to be brown. She claims only to be Indian. Okay. She does not claim her Jamaican side, her West Indian side, only when she wanted to smoke weed, and her family let her know that ain't cool. Okay, and then they're gonna have Hillary, who likes to rip up children's faces and have sex with girls forcibly because she's a pedophile. They're gonna have Ebony Ivory appeasing to the Negrotarians, the coons, the trans universal rainbow correlation, and all the freaking feminazis with the pink pussy hats. If I see another pink pussy hat, I'm gonna just fall over laughing. Okay, we gotta start the conversation. All right, y'all got me started. So that's just my take on the whole thing with Trump. Trump, you know that I think that was a false, that was a psyop. You know, I think it was a false flag. I have schizophrenia on days. I'm sure I do. Chad said I have schizophrenia. I'm sure you and your mother do too. Only a schizophrenic can always notice another schizophrenic. Did your mama have schizophrenia? Because maybe that's the recognition you have on me. Don't talk about me unless you want me to talk about you. And don't bring it to me unless you okay me bringing it to you. Okay? Schizophrenia is another psychological psyop. There are people who are mentally ill, yes, who are fractured, and most likely through trauma or through vaccines and other diabolical things. But don't play with me, sir. Tell your mother to call me and let's see if she can have a full non-fractured conversation. Then you can call me a schizophrenic if she's not able to hold an A and B conversation and a D and C conversation. Okay? Go, girl. Antagonize a Sag. Antagonize a Sag. I'm feeling good, y'all. I've traveled through 5 countries. I've survived driving through darn near the jungles of Brazil, and I'm back. All right, let's get into it. So we're gonna talk about sorry, y'all. Let me get back into the flux capacitor. Now, many of you know, please put can someone put the time we start on, can you guys mark the time so that people know when we're starting the conversation? Because we're just chopping it up before. Just put the time. Okay, we're gonna talk about my activation of my Flux XX capacitor. Now, any of you who are big into like Back to the Future, you remember the way that they time traveled was through this device, which was a flux capacitor, and it actually looks like a Y. You see it in my pin. Actually looks like a Y, right? Which is like lit up at 3 points, okay? Now, why this is important, because when I talked about traveling through the domes, sometimes what happens, generally when we're not at so close towards a pole shift, a magnetic shifting, which actually changes the magnetic sphere, and actually all the different energetic ley lines actually change. So it kind of like either weakens or becomes stronger in certain places. So traveling through what used to be the different domes probably didn't have the same effect on us biologically, mentally, spiritually, as it would have back in the days. You would have jumped through the dome, experienced a dome, and I've talked about that in a previous video when I was in Brazil. I talked about every time you go into the dome, you access the energies, the different energies within the dome, the different frequencies. You have access to different dreamscapes because the terrain in the dome, frequency and energetically and have different types of beings, different types of environmental influences, okay? Different DNA structural expressions in those domes. So your dreamscape generally changes. Means like, let's say you go on a vacation and you go to beautiful Jamaica. Let's say you go to Dunn's Rivers Falls. You know, Jamaica has so many beautiful places. You can go to, you know, Kingston is more the city. You probably wouldn't go there as a tourist. You probably go somewhere like to maybe Montego Bay, right? Negril, some of the most beautiful places in Jamaica. You go there, you're excited, you're with your lover, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whatever, your girlfriends, however you travel, and you get there and you're like so excited, the terrain is good, and then the ambiance changes in your energetic field. You start to bring in and take in and absorb the different frequencies that are now allotted to you in that dome. That is now going to change even your sleep patterns, and when you go to sleep, your access to different terrain, different environmental terrains, or different characters within your dreamscape. Because now you've entered into a dome which has a different energetic field and different frequencies and people and DNA. So it's all going to kind of bleed into your energetic field and change the dreamscape and change things about you and alter you. Whether it's good or bad, it doesn't matter. okay? Because you're going into another dome, which has another frequency, other allotted frequencies that are generally allotted to that specific dome, okay? I bring that up because I want to kind of go back into what I was saying, that the different domes have different energies, different frequencies, and we travel through them. Now, your Willy Wonka doesn't want you traveling anymore. How do I know this? Because of all the pushback that I saw people experiencing when they were trying to travel. Now, there's certain places that that your governments may not care that you go, because maybe it doesn't have as much of a different frequency. Maybe it's not going to trigger your DNA to unclove or to release certain codons of information that normally you wouldn't have access to. Maybe it doesn't matter to them. But right now, at this pinnacle point before reset and pole shift, they are trying to limit your ability to unravel and to trigger the access outside of this firmament. And I've talked about the different, and let me give a shout out to Brother Rich. I just happened to listen to, and I think Delmache had shared the video. I have been under the tutelage for years of Dr. Jewel Brookman. Many of you don't know her. Some of you do, because you've heard me speak of her so well. I mean, she was the reason, I think, this might be 15 or 16 years ago. It's gone a while ago, maybe 17. She actually shifted my consciousness from a kind of awareness that was already spiked, but into a much more proactive consciousness, meaning that instead of perceiving myself as a victim of the circumstances in my matrix, I became proactive in understanding that I am creating the sentientness, the terrain. My matrix is my mind's landscape projecting into my reality, creating the ebb and flow of the things I experience daily, people, places, and things. Okay? Even the diseases, dis-ease that you're experiencing are all from you. So she shifted me from perceiving myself as a bystander or as a, someone who's experiencing things just idly without responsibility. And I started to take responsibility of my own projections interfacing with me in order to elevate my perspectives, my perception, and my wisdom bearing reality. Okay? If you've not heard of her, listen, if you've ever had a disease, cancer, she kept it so real. The first video I ever saw of her, and this is pertinent to me explaining what happened with my Flux capacitor. Just, hey, shalom, Yafi, shalom, from to being activated. When I first saw Joe Brookman, this is years ago, I mean 17 or 16 years ago, I don't know, it might have been even longer, but that's generally the time frame I think, because I think about it in terms of my children. And I remember her first conversation, and it may have not been her first video, but it was the first conversation she had, was the reason she had gotten cancer, and she realized cancer is a liar's disease. And I'm dumbfounded, because I'm like, oh, okay, this woman is a doctor, you know what I mean? And why would she say that? Like, I just couldn't fathom her saying it's a liar's disease. I've never heard anyone say that. And then she explained that when you aren't truthful with yourself, when you lie to yourself, when you lie about who you are, what you are, how you breathe, who you are in front of people, the true being that you're supposed to be, it festers inside of you, and it creates these fibers of cancer, which I personally think is, fungi, and it builds that terrain in order to serve as a reminder of being truthful with who you are, because the festering comes out to reality, it becomes something you can't lie about anymore. It's almost like it spills over into your health, and now you have to see it, you have to experience it, you can't lie anymore. You have to hear her explain it. But she woke me up in ways, and I thought I was woke. No. I was aware of myself in terms of understanding I had a lot of control. I was a co-pilot. I could experience things. I was experiencing things with beings. I had contact with other beings. So it wasn't something that I felt like I didn't feel like I was lacking something until she explained the culpability to be responsible for you and your expression, how it's projecting into your reality. So everything is you. Anyway, I want to just say that, okay? Because she broke the seal of an aspect of self that I wouldn't have been able to ever come this far with many of you wonderful sea stars and sun stars. Okay, so I give much honor and credence to a woman that I've never met in person, and I will. Okay, but I've been under her tutelage for years, and breaking the aspects. And then she goes into the seven circuits of the brain. Like, she's the bomb, y'all. And I'm big into science because that was my major. I went to university based on that. So I have a really great scientific mind. She's like quantum entanglement mind hack. Like, she's where you go when you're advanced. She's where you go when you blindfold yourself and you can walk in the terrain, like all of the shamans get tested, walk in the forest and be able to find the 5 things that they ask you to find when you're doing your shaman's test. When they blindfold you, all you can use is this eye. She's the one you go to when you're advanced, and you needn't any drugs because she isn't a proponent of that, because that is a form of just jumping over boundaries that you needn't do. Okay, so let me get to the point. When I was traveling, I had gone through many different domes. I talk about the fact that when I kicked off the traveling, and many of you know I'm always looking. Hold on, y'all. Oh, let me take a sip. I always say the haters, but for the people who I'm not going to take a sip for the haters. I'm just take a sip for myself today. This is a decaf coffee I brought back from Argentina. Argentina has the cleanest coffee food ever. And it's so delicious. So when I kicked off my journey, many of you know I was looking for a wonderful place to lay my sanctuary. Many of you hear me talking for years that I was going to create a sanctuary. I think this has been a conversation you've heard me talk about for many, many years. And originally my goal, probably one of the places that I really, really wanted to, Jewel Brookman, L-I, Jewel Brookman. Okay. It's decaf. I know, Scott. I can't do caffeine anymore. I go into like frenzies, some days I have it because I was in Brazil. So, I didn't do decaf all the time. Cafeine in Brazil is like sex on the beach. It's something you want to do and need to do. I didn't do that. I'm joking, y'all. Be like, FleurBrun's out of control. I am Creole. We're quite, we can be fresh occasionally. Okay, so when I originally had chosen a place, I had chosen Brazil as my sanctuary zone. I really picked it out because I loved, my family originally is from South America. Many of it, I talk about the fact that they're from other places too, but by way of the Caribbean, the French Caribbean, my family has come from, part of my family came from, the majority, came from South America, which is French Guyana, which is Cayenne, and also the tip of Brazil, North Brazil. This is why I'm very reminiscent of the people in Brazil, probably. So a lot of that same genealogy. And it's the Carib tribe. So many of you know I come from the Carib, which is one of the tribes of the, what we consider to be the Caribs, come from, all of the Americas, mostly Central, South, I wouldn't say Central, well, South and Caribbean, but they all went through all the terrain of Central and South. So all in Latin America is pretty much the Caribs terrain, other than the Taino that come mostly, which on the other half of my family, I have a lot of Taino. That's where I get the bustiness from. Genetically, I'm more busty, and I have a little, but I don't have the, the big bum bum like that does come with some of the Taino. Taino sometimes have big bum bums, round bum bums, and bigger bust. The Caribs generally not very busty. Okay, that's not a Caribe quality. That's more of a Taino quality. I have the combination of the two tribes, which is really nice. The Caribs and the Arawaks. That's really, we're one and the same though, right? You know that they had a treaty between the two, the Taino and the Caribs. So many of us are mixed with both. The Haitians, the Dominicans, the Puerto Ricans, the Bahamians, those are all mostly Taino. Okay, so Taino is mostly reminiscent, like people from Georgia have a lot of that Taino blood, Floridians, people from the South have that Taino blood. Okay. Okay, so let's go into what happened when I traveled. So I was going to start a wonderful sanctuary in Brazil. And many of you know I traveled there, had a perfect place that I loved, and the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, I think most of you realize I had left and gone to Brazil to live for a while with my family. And unbeknown to me, I didn't realize that there was going to be such a major overtaking of people choosing to take the Cucaracha kill shot. I didn't anticipate that. I didn't anticipate that coming. And when it swept through Brazil, it was the most heartbreaking thing to watch. My people, big up to my people in Brazil and Bahia, only us, a few Americans, Canadians, some of my friends from UK, also from Portugal, we were the only ones who were conscious of what that was. And we actually helped for a few people within our circles to refrain from engaging in the poison. Okay, but for the majority of people in Brazil, I think when I went to Brazil the first time, it was 13% of the population that got the shot, the Cucaracha kill shot. When I was there, maybe not even a month and a half through, it was almost the majority of people, and they chose. It wasn't a thing where people were like, oh no, I don't want to get out. No. It was a choice thing, meaning that they were complicit and apathetic and hadn't any conscious awareness that there could have been something wrong with the government, Willy Wonka system, initiating something that was vetted, that was circumstantial, and also that was globally being instituted. So really in itself, it was really quite disturbing, because you have to think to yourself, if a country with the majority of people being complicit, that is dangerous to have any sort of placement that will be out of frequency with the majority of people, because you know that people who had gotten the Cucaracha kill shot are emitting a frequency that is altered and also lower vibrational, that could cause issues with someone like me coming in, creating a space of beautiful beauty, love, harmoniousness, building a nation with women, sisterhood, families, men coming in, healing, children, babies being born on site, all these wonderful things that I had in my mind in creating this wonderful facility could not be harmonic in a place where there was such complicity and lack of discernment and spiritual advancement, and a knowing that would make us feel harmonious, at least in my mind. Okay. It is no shade, but there is shade, because if you are, and I've talked about this before, you know, this is the land of the Orishas, the land where people who are very spiritual, they develop in a still practice of doing kumbale, and also doing, you know, like capoeira. You know, capoeira is like that dance, you know, it's like a form of martial arts that the men do, and movement that's spiritually based, but it's like, you know, very African origin built. They still are very much into that. And when you see that people are in a rudimentary kind of religion still, where it's still rooted in African traditions that are connected to slavery, you do know that they're kind of tethered and limited. So if in fact the Orishas were so powerful and wonderful and so austere and so wonderful to the people, how come they didn't get the warning? How come they didn't get the FYI? How come the spiritualists didn't say, yo? Ashun was like, yo. Ashun was calling like, yo, you're not gonna take that shot because you know what's in it. It's poison. So you, all my people up in the wonderful Orisha houses, they didn't get that. So when you overstand and understand, my dog is doing this, that there isn't a higher force, and people who are engaging and being mounted by beings that are supposed to be, connected to, you know, higher forms of consciousness, and they weren't giving warnings to the people, nor were they initiating them to even question it. You have to ask yourself, are those connections spiritually higher? Or are they rudimentary religions that are still based in victimhood and slavery-based mindset that still puts them in a layer of 3D behavior and connection that disallows them from having anything above and higher? Okay, it's just like when you have spirituality, like you never stay in first grade forever, right? If you learn spiritual things, right, do you always stay in first grade or do you graduate? Okay, what, you know, just like with religions, there's always a cap. Like, how far can you go? You know, even with the whole Masonic thing, like there's degrees, right? So you get past first degree, seventh, but you elevate to different systems of understanding, overstanding, and teachings as you evolve, right? So you learn, let's say I learned mathematics, base mathematics, right? 1 + 1 is 2. In some of your worlds, 1 + 1 is 3. But in my world, it's still 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, so 2 + 2 is 4. Okay, so that's rudimentary. Okay, but after I gain that basic principle of mathematics, I can eventually go up the ladder, and eventually I can hit the ladder where I can engage in supreme mathematics, which some of you know who are who are Masons, who are Moors. I think the Moors, you guys know about the supreme mathematics. Some of those in the different orders of the Scottish Rites, and so also know about supreme mathematics. That's when you get to a higher form of quantum mathematics, where you kind of bring in geometrical numerical values, and you work with those within the biorhythmic numbers of this simulation. Is it the Nation of Islam? Is it the Nation of Islam? Oh, maybe the Nation of Islam too. So the 5%ers, the Nation of Islam, the Moors, and actually the Masons, I think, are into that. I'm not sure if the Wiccan, the witches, the Wiccans, the other occultists are into that, or they may call it something different. Okay, so that being said, I bring that up with Brazil not to criticize them. I think, like I said, I love Brazil. I'm connected. I talk about having a genetic connection and meeting my grandmothers in the etheric realm, that they were stuck in a loop because when the others came, the colonizers came, they brought some form of technology. So when people transcended and died, the natives that were killed, they were caught in an energetic loop that put them right above the reality, and they didn't know they were dead. So when I went there as a physical representation of my ancestors with the same genealogy, it keyed up. It actually was, you know how you beam me up, Scotty? I had the molecular structure, the key. This is what I'm going to talk about in a minute when we talk about the Flux Capacitor. I had the key that as soon as I landed on the terrain that my family had not lived for at least maybe 1 or 2 generations from South America, I actually unleashed, keyed up to the reality where my grandmothers were existing with all these other native people that they didn't know that they were looping. And once I did that, I was able to access them and free them from the loop. And that's when one of my grandmothers taught me how to do a form of energetic, what's it called? Energetic, what is it called? The needles in the skin. She taught me how to do that, which was amazing. And she took me to a place that was underneath a cave, like a waterfall cave. And she actually taught me this. It was like blue lights, and I can actually see the different veins on the body that were like maps. And she taught me how to do that energetically. It was amazing. I didn't even know that she existed in this locked realm. Acupuncture, thank you. Acupuncture. So, it was one of the things that I first learned that it's important for you. And that's why I also think that Willy Wonka and his League of Doom don't want you traveling to places where your ancestors once roamed. You're going to be called to those places because you are the key. Everyone has a genetic coding. And with the coding, sometimes the information is locked until certain time frames when there's a certain energetic frequency that the collective rises into, or an environment does, which allows you to unlock codons within yourself or within triggering those family members that will bring that information to you when you unlock it in them. Okay, so at this time, you may be called to places where Granny was. So I hear a lot of the Zumbi say, like, you know, Aziza said on our channel, like she was called to Georgia. Georgia was called, I get chills when I say that, called to Georgia. And she gets to Georgia and like there's a feeling, a connection, a smell, a taste. That is the triggering effect. Genetically, we're connected to terrain where our family members had lived, especially for a duration of time. Okay, there's an energetic bleed over that still exists there, and if they had any coding or anything, you can access that now, especially because we're going into time where there's going to be reset and pole shift. All doors can be unlocked if you qualify for that. Okay, hey. Ribbit, yes. Oh wait, yes, I'm a froggy. I should do my Mike Froggy Ribbit, right? Ribbit. I'm a trans frog, y'all. If you don't know, now you know. So that being said, you may be called. Now, Willy Wonka's trying to stop. Now, what I noticed with this time with me traveling is the resistance was so different because there was a resistance of me, not so much of me leaving, but you can see it was a general resistance that disallowed, they didn't want certain kind of people. What people are we talking about? Are we talking about you and me? I think so. Certain type of people of a certain consciousness having the calling, caw, 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 like a bird, you know, my dogs, the calling to almost like a migrational call. And what I noticed is that when I got to Chile, there were so many things that were set up in Chile that I was kind of in shock. And it wasn't until we reached Chile, which is absolutely a beautiful country. And I have to say, like, I didn't expect, Chile was one of those places that just was on the bucket list. It wasn't a place that I necessarily thought of anything. I was looking for new places to scout for my sanctuary, but I really didn't have an expectation of it until I got there. And I realized these mother freakers right here don't want you going there. I understood. You know when you grasp something, but you have to go into it to get it. It wasn't until we landed. Now, Chile is beautiful. We went to Santiago first, and I tell you about the terrain, the Andes Mountains surrounding the airport. It was nothing I've ever visually seen. So you get the triggering effect, and then I talk about the dome. So I'm jumping in a dome I've never been into. But when I jumped into it, I had memories, smell, taste, and visuals. So I say to myself, why would I have this? I don't know of anyone who's been here that's family member. And it wasn't until we got there, I was like, something is familiar about the terrain. Now, Chile, to me, what they don't want you to know is that their economy is better than ours. When they tell you that the United Snakes is the bomb.com, it is a lie to you. They want to keep you complicit and complacent so that you'll sit nicely and take your Kool-Aid of poison every day and not look outside of your dome. Okay? That's why they don't tell you any different. When I'm going there and I'm seeing that their currency outweighs ours, I'm going shopping and I'm like, oh, wait a second. Why am I paying more money when I'm shopping? Because their money is higher than ours. The value of the currency outweighs ours. It is right under the euro. Did you know that? No, you wouldn't know that because they tell you that the United States currency is the bomb.com, which is a lie. They don't tell you that when you go to a country that is so comfortable, and big up to the Chileans, because the reason why I wanted to go there is because I wanted to go to a country where the majority of people were O positive. And what I found to be just as refreshing is that when you live somewhere where the majority of your blood type is reminiscent of you, everything from the food, the environment, the music, the communication, the work is going to match in alignment with everything that matches with you. So when I go into an O positive majority country, and they changed it since I looked, it was 70%, y'all. They changed it because when I looked the first time, it was 70%. And I know it's true because as soon as I got there, everything was reminiscent of everything that I represent. Everything was reminiscent of Chile, of O positive. When we went out to eat the first night, I had eaten a kind of chowder, like a, I don't know, like a I don't know, like a souffle kind of chowder. It had meat at the bottom, but like, you know, like a sweet corn at the top. And I took one bite of it and had a memory. And I said, what the freak is this? I'm having a memory while I'm eating this. And I'm like, I've never had this before, but I've tasted this before. So I'm thinking to myself, like, this has to be some sort of cellular memory. So I call my mom. Hey, mom, you know, I'm eating this, like this dinner, yada, yada, yada. I'm drinking that, I'm eating this and so on. She was like, oh, my grandmother, y'all, the one, remember I told you I'm generation out. It was her mother, her grandmother, who was from South America. So now I jump out into a world where I'm eating a meal that her grandmother, which is my great grandmother, used to make for her. How is that possible? Was she ever in Chile? This is where I'm saying that it's important for you to access certain places where your ancestors used to be, because the cellular memories wake up your codons. So now I'm remembering a meal that I've never had, but my mother's grandmother used to make for her quite often. Okay? So as I'm there, I'm eating the food that is reminiscent of my body. My biological makeup is my stomach, where many of I talked about before when I was in the States. I'm back in the States just for a minute. I'm going to leave again. But when I was in the States, my tummy was really bothering me. And many of you know over the years, I don't care what you say on my thickums, I eat really well and healthy. Many of you know I fast quite often. I'm very mindful of the things I put on my body and on my body, or in my body, right? So my stomach was not doing well before I left. I went into Chile for 2 days, less than 48 hours, and my entire stomach healed itself within that period of time. And I wasn't watching as much of what I ate there because I just was getting there. We're kind of going out to dinner. I didn't have the same restrictions that I have in the States. We're making sure I only eat organic. I make sure I don't mess with the dairy. I don't mess with certain things, you know, like I do in the States. But what happened is that I'm going into a country where the majority of people are O positive. Even in the behavior patterns, they were conducive. They were calm like an O positive, very confident. That's why their economy is doing well, because it is a country that's driven by O positives. Remember, O's are very assertive. They are the leaders. They are very, what is it like? Innovative. You know what I mean? They're just, you know, very strong-willed. This is why when you go in a country where it matches you emotionally, spiritually, I mean, the people were so calm and confident. I mean, I went inside and all the concepts and constructs of racial tension and biases and people not liking brown people or lunar people, that all ended as soon as I entered Chile, because there's an ambiguousness about the people. I'm not saying that there was a beautiful confidence about the people. And going in, we had our luggage didn't come for like 3 days because there was a storm in Miami. That's where we came through. And a wonderful Chilean, a lunar looking appearing man, took his time to help us with everything, to help us to get ourselves acclimated, what we needed, where we could go, and so on. And that was generally the position of most of the Chileans, if not all, in our entire stay in Chile, from going from all the way to the north to all the way to the south. Okay? Why do I bring this up? Because in Chile is where I experienced a genetic unloading and a surge of an awakening in my DNA. So it was literally the first part of my flux capacitor, because my flux capacitor wasn't working in the United States. I was getting information. I always have connection to the other realms, but there was something that wasn't quite working. And you can see, and when your body's not doing well, if you're not feeling good, if you're always feeling like you're stressed, you have headaches, you have tummy aches, your technology, your biological technology isn't going to work at its maximum capacity. But if you go, and I realize now that innately, my intuition in going through the different segments of Latin America, South America, literally triggered my technology to turn on. So Chile was the kickoff. Big up to Chile, above and beyond anything I could have perceived. Okay, we went from the north of Chile, which is still very south to us. And I will say this, coming on the plane, going into Chile, because generally many of you know when I go into South America, I generally stay in the north of the South America. So remember, everything's flip seasons. So for many of you know that for right now, we're experiencing summer in the northern hemisphere of the Americas. In the southern hemispheres of the Americas, Brazil, Ecuador, Venezuela, Colombia, Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, Bolivia, they're all experiencing winter, okay? But the more south you go is more cold, and you experience more of the winter. And the more north you are experiencing, like how Florida is to us in the United States, it's more, the south is more warm, whereas in Brazil and in South America, the north is cold. I mean, the north is warmer and the south is colder, okay? So I ended up going all the way to the south of Chile. And during this time, my body started to open up and become more receptive to energetic frequencies that I wasn't accustomed to. Because now I'm not just going to South America and staying in the northern hemisphere, I'm going more south, triggering for my DNA to be activated. Okay? So that traveling, my technology, which I'm going to talk about, the Flux Capacitor, which is the same device that you see in Back to the Future. If you have not seen Back to the Future, I know for you younger folk, younger sea stars and sun stars, this may be a little corny for you because it's a movie that's, you know, back in the days, or technology wasn't as great, right? You know, so, you know, when you watch the movies, you think it's a little corny, but it really speaks to the technology that is within many of us. And I say many and not all because not everybody has this ability to access the quantum field, okay? Based on not qualifying in previous lifetimes to be able to have the technology to descend. Notice I won't be saying ascending anymore because it isn't going up, it's going down and in, okay? So we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. So as you know, I traveled, I unleashed, and I went to the south. My technology, my biological technology turned on. It literally allowed for more frequencies, more resonance, to be able to, for me to access more resonance, okay? So that being said, I'm going to talk about the flux capacitor, and then I'll talk about, because you know when I talk about the little beings, the little elves that I had contact with in Argentina, the penguins, they were beings that I overstand now, were generally accessible because I now became my Wi-Fi, my broad band was now expanded and working at a higher capacity. It's kind of like how they say 5G, even though 5G is a psyop, okay? Because I was all through South America. I got better reception in 3G that we're supposedly get with 5G. That's a whole psyop, y'all. That's to make you, qualify them to put all these towers on that I personally now know, as I traveled through the South, came back to the North, that they put those towers on to limit our broadband abilities. It is limiting our ability to access different spectrums of sound frequency and photonic light. Okay? That is a cap. So that is meant to insulate and isolate those within this dome we call the United Fakes. Okay? I call it the Terror Zone because we're in here with a whole bunch of sociopaths. But like I say, the most conscious people are coming out of the Americas. So it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's like the best and the baddest are up in this piece. So as you begin to get access, because your broadband allows for wider range of radio frequencies, light frequencies, photonic light to be accessible, this allows for you to be able to transmute negative ions and your technology to start to turn on, which is which is the flux capacitor. Now, when we talk about the flux capacitor, let me kind of, because I took the notes, y'all. So please put a like on the video if you're up for this. And I got this little scientific today. I hope it's not beyond your capacity to understand, or at least allow me to share it with you. Okay. So when I came, I talked about going so far south that there was resistance. And I understood that when I was in Chile, they didn't have a lot of information about what was going on in our side of the world. Remember, we share the same continent, right? We share the same continent. And I talk about this with you all the time, is that many of you talk as far as traveling as if you are living on a continent. We would talk about our beautiful family in Africa. We would say, oh, the Africans. Don't you realize that you say it so matter of fact, even though Africa is like, God knows, 20 times the size of our country, of United States. I mean, you could fit Asia, Europe, and US up in Africa and still have room for other countries, okay? So they are a huge continent. It is a huge continent. So when we talk in terms of Africa, you say it as like Africa is just a country. Africa has 54 plus countries, okay? Okay? And you do realize that we're living in the Americas, that the Americas, we have different countries within the Americas that we as Americans should access. Instead of you thinking in terms of like separating yourself from Mexico, from Ecuador, from Costa Rica, from Peru, from Argentina, why do you separate yourselves? Because that's purposefully done it, and we've been socially engineered to separate ourselves in our own continent, but we unify other people in other continents like Africa. We put them in one big bubble, right, in Africa, as if it's one place. It has got so many different terrains, more than ours, way more. But in our own neck of the woods, we refuse to do that. That is a form of social engineering and purposefully done. When I went to Chile and they had no idea what was going on in our hemisphere, same with Brazil, very limited information, purpose, like that's why they don't have prejudices against brown people in Chile like they do in the United States. If they were influenced by the United States shenanigans, the Chileans would have treated me like I'm treated when I go shopping, even though I probably have more money than some people in the store, like a criminal. And I always have to keep my hands out, always have to show my stuff in my bag and verify that I'm not a criminal because I have brown skin. When I'm in Chile, I talked about this all the time, and I know many of you get sad, but it's a wonderful, empowering thing, is that I was out there, remember, we didn't have any air luggage, our luggage didn't go, so I had to buy my children clothing because it was cold. You know, we're in a colder hemisphere. It's cold, it's beautiful, but we don't have anything to wear. So I had to go shopping. And I'm accustomed to going shopping in the United States and always having to show what's in my bags. If I go in a fitting room, or if I'm walking around and I shop from another store to another store, I'm always very conscious, like a free slave. That master might come and just try to qualify me as a slave again. It's a mindset. It's not true. Remember, there isn't any victims here. I'm just telling you what's in my mind from being socially engineered to have a constant feeling that I have to qualify myself as a non-criminal, or a non-slut, or a non-thought, or a non, you know what I mean, or educated. It doesn't mean it's right. I'm not justifying it. I'm just telling you how I felt. And it shows up. I don't know that I have this social engineering. I don't know that I'm under that mind control programming until I have to show up with it. So I'm in the store shopping, and everywhere I'm going, you know, I shop for my children, and I'm showing about, no, you don't have to. And I was like, oh my God, I'm suffering from mind control. I'm suffering from mind control programming. I'm suffering. Like, I didn't even know. You know, sometimes I think I'm progressive, I'm chilling, you know, I travel a lot. I'm like, I'm good. No, I was, because I'm in a country that does not have the influence of United Fakes on it. So it isn't constantly challenging me to verify and qualify myself as a non-criminal. You understand? So now I'm healing, because now I've been made hyper aware that I'm suffering from mind control programming from my previous dome, and that the people of this dome are not being exposed to the social engineering of hating all brown people, think we're all criminals and we're low vibration, we're not educated. Okay, they aren't being exposed to that. Even though they're like a fusion of different kinds, because when you go to Chile, it's very ambiguous. People look maybe lighter skin with hair like me, or you'll see a girl with a little darker skin, maybe very Asianic eyes and a big afro. They're very ambiguous. You know what I mean? So there's like a fusion of the people there. And there's a huge population of Haitians there. Big up to my Haitians, ça passe, to the Haitians in the house. What I found was very beautiful in beautiful Santiago, Chile, is that the Haitians were invited to go to Brazil and to Chile. And I saw beautiful Haitian people, brown people walking around, happy, in all types of positions, powerful positions. You could see by the way they dress. Like, you could see them dress in high-ended clothing, like they were going to a business corporate meeting. I've seen them doing regular things. And it was so beautiful to see that when a Haitian walked by, a fair-skinned Chilean, that they weren't grabbing their purse. I'm talking about the social engineering that we experience, and this is very important when I talk about when your technology changes, because you are experiencing something outside of your reality, your dome. So now things are being triggered in you to overcome, like, because they're muters. So now I'm watching Haitians walk by lighter skinned, very fair skinned people, and they're not grabbing their bags. They're not even turning around to look at them to see if they're going, nothing. It was such a wonderful reflection of my mind control programming so that I could unwind it, see it for what it was, and release it out into the stratosphere. Because now I was existing in a world where those social cues and hues aren't being constantly reminded to people through forms of constant social engineering through television, radio, and other things. One thing I will say about Chile, the music was independent, which is reminiscent of being an O positive country. I had heard hip hop, because you know I'm a hip hop head. Many of you know I love my Caribbean music, because my mother and father used to listen to soca all day. Caribbean soca. They love Sparrow. Big up to all you West Indians or children of West Indians. My dad loved to listen to soca, especially Sparrow, right? Mighty Sparrow, right? 5 cents, 10 cents, 5 cents. Pick up your wine in, big bati wine. Many of you know, we're dancing people, Caribbean people were raised. So many of you know, I know some of the Caribbean, children of Caribbean people, you know what I'm talking about. Because when you go to Carnival, you know we hear our Calypso. Okay, soca, Calypso. Come on now, right? Wine. Anyway, so it's beautiful. So I love that I heard beautiful new music in Chile that I have never, listen, I'm a hip hop head. I grew up in the 90s. You know I love hip hop. I'm from New York. It was where hip hop was at its strongest. Listen, I heard things in Chile. I wanted to write down every name of their music. They are very beautiful, musically independent, unique. Nothing I've ever heard in any other country. I was sitting there listening to music inside of the Ubers, because we get in the Ubers. I was listening to music like, what's that? Triggered. Because now I'm unwinding, I'm unraveling the mind control programming. So I'm dumping it, right? I'm getting new programs and dumping the old programming, because I'm realizing, because you can't change what you aren't acknowledging. So now I'm changing things based on acknowledgement that the technology that I had was being capped by social engineering that was purposefully instituted inside of our dome in the United States to constantly keep us in a residual loop of subsidiary patterns of mindset. You don't know that you have this form. It's the same thing when I put the crayon today and it triggers people to have a response. When I put a brown crayon on the thing and it says black, because most people don't realize that's some form of mind control. My skin is copper. If I took a copper penny, I'm the color copper. As you heard, many of the natives back in the day were copper color. So it's so funny that social engineering has made people perceive people of copper and brown skin as black. When in fact, the trees are brown, squirrels are brown, there's rabbits that are brown, there's brown bears, and you wouldn't ever call a brown bear a black bear. You wouldn't mistake a tree as having a black tree trunk. You wouldn't have mistaken a branch as being black. But why, when it comes to certain people, it's a constant reminder of calling people what they aren't. It's like, oh, the sky is purple. And you look in, obviously the sky is blue, right? The sky is purple. The school, oh, the sky is purple. the purple sky. So now you create a whole system where there's a perpetuation of a lie that will constantly keep people in a loop to uphold it. Okay, that's why it's very important for you to jump domes. And that's what I'm talking about. The flux capacitor that's within us gets activated when we take off blockers, like almost, well, zip ties, like cut the zip ties off. Okay, you know when you buy something new and sometimes they have zip ties so it doesn't displace, you know, a piece of the equipment, or you tie it to bind it, you're cutting off zip ties that were on you. And these were purposeful zip ties. Okay, is everybody with me? Put a like in the video if you're up for the shenanigans. I know I have to kind of start at the beginning to get to my point, and I hope it doesn't bother you. A lot of people like get to the point. If you want a channel like that, I'm certainly not the channel. I'm a chatter. My dad loved to talk to everybody. My mom was a teacher. I love to chat with you. It's like having a conversation with you over coffee. It's my personality. If this kind of share isn't in alignment with you, it's because this information isn't for you, and you should go to another channel that's more in serving you what you desire in the way and fashion you desire it. Okay, I'm for those who are in alignment with that, and they get the gems because they are in alignment with my frequency. If I agitate you or I take too long, you're not in qualifications of getting the information. It's like putting a big dragon in front of a very precious stone. The dragon is to deter you. My banter is to deter those who aren't qualified for it. Booyah. Booyah. And I am a bit antagonistic, but I'm Creole. I'm also from New York, and I'm a woman of a certain age. It is what it is. And I'm a trans frog, and I'm a gay Jewish man and a black man on payday. I mean, God, you just got to take that. Okay. All right. So when we talk about that, the triggering effect of the music, everything coming in, I realized that the form of mind control that each of the domes has doesn't always exist in the other ones. Okay, so it's important for us to, if you aren't traveling outside the dome, this is another thing I want you to realize, watching places that you are feeling drawn to, because it's not like, I love that Jewel Brookman, and I say big up to Rich, who had Jewel Brookman on. I love Jewel Brookman when she's on. She still blows my mind. Like, I think I'm conscious until I listen to her. I'm like, okay, I gotta grow. I gotta upgrade myself. You know what I mean? So when we talk in terms of like going out of the dome, there are ways that you can do it without doing it. And I always say I want you to physically do it, but there are travel channels, places. So if you're being drawn to like Ireland, I had a girlfriend who was like drawn to Ireland. She loved it. Like, she used to dream about it, like dreaming of the green rolling hills, like smell the grass, you know what I mean? And her ancestors are from there. So she was getting the call of the activation. It's literally you getting the herding call. You're being herded and drawn and told to go to the place to activate something in you. And she couldn't quite go right away, but what she would do is watch these wonderful travel channels. People were traveling there, going and doing walks, like the 401k walks. And she was getting like memories from that, just from watching the videos, memories. And it was really enough to keep her just, you know, kind of satisfied enough. So she didn't have to necessarily spend all the money to go on a plane, but eventually she was able to go, and then she received like messages, like spirits talking to her, like her ancestors from like a grave. It was so touching and beautiful, and so healing and masterful, that literally in itself, it allowed her to eventually to marry a guy in of her ancestry, a guy in Ireland. I think he was from outside of Dublin. I don't know the places, but I remember the name if I heard it. It's outside of Dublin. And magically she met him on a train ride across, where she was going to see her grandfather's grave. Like, going, isn't that so? That's what I'm saying. Like, everything these things unlock, and you have access to certain things or people when you kind of jump into a dome that's calling you, especially if it's ancestral base. Okay, so let's go into I keep saying we're going to go into the flux capacitor. So why I wanted to bring this up is because during my transit transient movement through Brazil, I was literally triggered. Bam. And I didn't know why I was getting issues booking. Now, why it's important for you to always follow your first mind, and this is where I learned that from Dr. Deborah Blair, is because I had to go to, because I had a place in Bahia, my friend, I had some stuff in Bahia, I had to move around. So I had to get there. So when I got to Sao Paulo, I knew I had to go to Bahia, but every time I looked for a flight, I couldn't get the perfect flight. And it was just agitating me. I was like, okay, I know I have to go there. So why am I getting this kind of resistance? And then all of a sudden in my head, just drive. Out of the blue. It was my own voice. It wasn't another voice, just drive. And I'm like saying to myself, like, what? Drive? I was like, yeah, let's drive. Just that quick, that easy. And I was receptive to it. Okay, get the rent-a-car, call the place, see it. Oh, it was affordable. It was doable. It was easy, breezy, cover girl. I said, all right, let me go and get the car and let's go. And because I drive in Brazil all the time, that's why I say it's not for everybody. My journey is different from everyone, but I'm sharing this because it shows so much how you will always have the answers and you'll always be told, driven in a direction that's most viable and permissible to you. For others, driving through Brazil would be insane. I'm a driver. I'm from New York. I drive in Brazil with the mopeds and everything. I've been driving in Brazil since 2018. Not so much Paolo was the one who drove the first year, but after that, I've been driving ever since. I feel comfortable and confident. As you see, I'm here, even though the car broke down 2 hours before we got to Sao Paulo on our way back. But that's another conversation, the car, because the terrain in Brazil is buck wild. But I realized that there was something that I had to experience, and it was, hindsight is 2020. It wasn't until after I started the drive, I realized the geometrical photon expressions, because now I don't have Wi-Fi all the time, so I'm not being bombarded by 5G, 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 5G. I'm there, that's done. I'm in, Brazil is very, like, it has wonderful terrain, but it could be city, country, totally jungle in a matter of, moments. So Wi-Fi, you have enough for travel. So we make sure we always have a map, but you aren't being bombarded with constant Wi-Fi radiation that's bombarding your mind, kind of muting your ability to receive certain kind of quantum information or photonic information. So as I'm driving, I'm receiving all these visuals that are geometrically based in the way that I could never see. I saw terrain that I know was alien. Just nothing I've ever seen in my life, not on a magazine, not on not in space, not on an alien show, that could prepare me for the visual stimulation that I was going to be exposed to, that literally triggered for my technology to turn on in my body. And that's why I say they're purposefully demonizing and deterring people from entering into places that would qualify them to now access quantum field, like traveling. Okay, so now I'm perceiving, and I have pictures. I wish I could show you, because I'm on my phone, so I wish I could show you pictures, because it's, like I said, it's nothing like, we woke up one time, I was driving in the dark, and normally I don't like to drive at night, and that's really big in Brazil, because Brazil is, when I say it's black, it's dark. Like, have you ever driven in Virginia or in the South or in Georgia when it's dark on a dark country road? No, that ain't got nothing on Brazil's darkness. It's like black. It's like the midnight. It's like the midnight train. It's like the black hole. As such you win. So there was a point where I was driving, and I wasn't too far from Bahia, but I know it's far enough, and there's only so much daylight. Many of you know who travel into South America that you only have so much daylight. So if you don't leave early enough, the sun goes down at 5:30 every day, and they don't do the sunlight saving times. So every day 5:30, the sun, you see it goes. I don't even have to look at the clock. It's perfectly in alignment. Goes this way, goes above you, and I know it's going to get dark. So I had to pull over and the last rest stop, because I'm driving on a road behind a truck, just using him as my guide. and I figured I have to go because, you know, I'm driving with my family, so I want to make sure I'm safe. Drive off, and, you know, we rest in a truck stop. And the truck stops, let me say, Brazil has some of the safest, most beautiful, healthiest truck stops, and the men in Brazil are mad protective of especially women. And I know that's not something you've heard. I know it's not something maybe you hear often, but the men, when they see that a woman is traveling, especially with her family, they rock on. Like, I'm talking about they almost like line up to make sure you good. And that's the beauty of Brazil. Like, Brazilian people are some of the most amazing, beautiful people. And don't you ever think anything different. I'm talking about from lunar, blue-eyed, blonde hair to dark preto. Preto is like dark skin. They are absolutely amazing. So we stopped and, you know, went to sleep, couldn't see anything, woke up, and I was in like, do you remember King Kong versus, you know, King Kong and Skull Mountain? I woke up to like these huge alien looking, like, it looked like meteorites all around me. Just woke up because I had to get up and drive early. And I'm looking at meteorites. Like, it looked like Skull Mountain. Even with the pictures, you can't even imagine waking up and seeing these huge, like, megathons of huge, like, meteorites. It's nothing I've ever seen. And they're in all these weird positions that you know that this is not natural. This is not natural from this terrain. This is extraterrestrial. It is otherworldly. I've never seen anything like it. And I'm waking up, and this is what I was driving in, and you didn't even know. Okay? And this is the beauty of seeing something geometrical that your eyes haven't ever laid on. And I feel that the reason why I was triggered to drive is because I had to be literally woken up genetically. Because remember, my people come from there, and I'm in contact with aliens. Many of you know the beings that I'm in contact with there. Bonjour, bonjour. Comment ça va? Ça va très bien et tout. Je parle français. Leila, Lali, 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 Lali. That's pretty. Très joli. So I'm being triggered by seeing geometrical shapes I've never seen before. They're off-worldly. So now my geometrical structures in my body are being triggered by this sight. And every place that I drove on this beautiful ride from Sao Paulo to Bahia was triggering a codon, my flux capacitor to literally open and start to work. Now I'm gonna tell you what that means in a minute. But what I mentioned with the flux capacitor, again, if you don't know what that is, watch. Again, I'm gonna explain what it is, but it's a form of technology that allows you to travel through dimensions, through densities, and through time. Time is a false construct. It's artificial. It's our only concept of time is through physicality, okay, physical things, okay? And as I'm going through this terrain, I'm starting to experience forms of manifestation in thought that literally only need to be spoken and come into reality. Yes, my loves. You know when they'd be like, oh, the secret, you just have to pretend like you want to be in the secret, and the secret is not a secret, and you just have to pretend and put vision boards, and you got to do all this cool stuff, and you got to pretend like you're in it to win it. My flux capacitor, the technology in my biosphere, my body, my XX, turned on, which allowed me to think thoughts come into reality. Remember, like, what was it? What was the Leva Genie was like this, right? She went like this. The Bewitched. Remember, she went da, 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 da. Okay, literally within that moment, and I didn't notice it right away because at the time I'm trying to make it to my destination. I got my children with me. I'm trying to make sure I gotta get to my homegirl. So I'm on a mission. Now, I should have noticed at the time because every thought that was coming in my head was showing up, but I was distracted. So I was driving, and eventually I hit beautiful Bahia. Many of you know I have a beautiful place. I love Bahia. I have my wonderful secret little town that I love, and I enjoy the amenities. I have friends that are like family to us. They love my family, love my children, and I love going there. It's like going back home. My children feel like every time we go, it's like going home. We reached there. And then I become aware that my thoughts are now producing a full stream of energetic wavelength that is higher than it was before. Now it produces the manifestation within moments of my thoughts. And because I become aware of that, now I begin to isolate the thoughts so that I'm refraining from triggering things that aren't in alignment, because just like the things that I wanted, I was triggering thoughts that I didn't want. Okay? Because it was that's how fast it was. Okay? Oh, Jeannie nodded her head. No, but Bewitch went like this. She went ding-a-ding-a-ding. Bewitch was like this. What did she do? She like two women that were into manifestation, right? That were otherworldly. So as I figured out that I was manifesting these things into reality, I remember I had just left, when I went to Sao Paulo, I had just left Argentina in the middle of the snow, beautiful. Went to Brazil and Sao Paulo, stayed in Liberdade, which we loved, and drove myself to Bahia, and noticed that whatever happens with all of the exposure to geometrical photon frequencies that were outside of things that I would ever be exposed to without technology dampening and darkening and capping it, I literally had my technology turn on fully. Okay. And I should have known that Chile was the beginning, because with Chile, because I went so far south, I no longer was under the constant bombardment of northern hemispheric interference with the 5G. Even though they have 5G, they have towers in Chile, I hadn't seen a bombardment of craziness, even in the big city of Santiago, where I was staying in a building, which was beautiful, in an apartment. I hadn't ever felt like stinging in my phone. You know, when you have your phone, sometimes you get stinging, like stinging in your phone, hot phones. I hadn't ever experienced that. I didn't experience headaches that normally I would get in cities. That was all gone. The tummy problems that I experienced in the United States, that literally was becoming an issue, was gone within 48 hours. My technology of my body, your biosphere is a technology. And if we aren't harming it and dampening it with like bad food, bad company, putting like Cucaracha kill shots in us, putting tattoos all over our body, imprinting that black goo and blocking certain ways of frequencies to be able to be accessible, putting devices in our body, you know, boobies, fake boob, you know, artificial things in your body, your butt, your, you know, things, Botox. If those aren't things you're doing regularly, your technology doesn't have as many hampering, other than outer perimeters that your government could be doing with using technology like scalar technology that they're using constantly to keep you at a certain level so that you aren't able to spike or access certain information outside of what they want you to. Okay? You guys with me? I hope I'm not going over the top. Am I talking too much? Let me know. Anyone let me know if you feel like I'm, because I talk fast, so I want to know that you're kind of, you know, I don't want to share this with you if it's not in alignment with me sharing, if you don't want to, if you don't feel in alignment with it. I at least want to be in accord with you guys. Okay. So as I'm coming back, I realized that now I have something that is able, and I talked to the Zombies on it. I thought it was some sort of manifestation thing, but later on I find out it's not so much manifestation. It's a technology that we have in us. It's what allows our thoughts to proactively change our reality immediately. Probably with all the shots and things they give you as a child and all the bombardment of social engineering and all the wars and people dying, it messes with your ability to access that kind of ability because it caps you. So now I'm now driving back from Bahia. We enjoyed ourselves, beautiful. I learned to do the foho. Did you guys know the foho? I learned to dance the foho. My children did too. We have some great, amazing dancers, which were friends of my girlfriend. She had some friends who were dancing in the foho. I'm wondering if any Brazilians, you know, to do the foho, because I know all these Latin dances. I never heard of the foho. Totally different. I loved it. My mother says it's the mambo, which is interesting because my mother saw the dance with my daughter doing it, and she said, "Oh, that's the mambo." Anyway, just that's side thing. It was a dance that I know the music of Brazil. It's a certain sound, but I didn't know the dance, and it was beautiful listening to it and doing it. The Foho. Anybody, I just wondered if anybody ever learned this dance. But my mom says it's the mambo, so I guess back in the days it may have been called something different. Anyway, I just wanted to add that. Okay. So coming back, driving back from Bahia, going back into the terrain, I was experiencing like photonic light frequencies in my head. Now, you got to wonder, because you say to yourself, if this is happening, if the body is over, if it's being overloaded, which wasn't happening, but at the time I was like, is this coming in too much? Maybe it's so much information, or maybe I've changed. It's a folklore dance. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Rose. I didn't know that. I love it. I love it. So it's very masculine, being led by a man, just like, it's very grounding. I really enjoyed it, that dance. So I started to get like lights, and like, you know, when you close your eyes, you ever close your eyes and sometimes you see these little lights? But when I would close my eyes, I would get like lights, different spectrums of light coming in. Like I would close my eyes like this, and I was getting like purple and pink, and it was mostly in those two colors that it was kind of shooting in my head. And at first, you know, because I worked in genetics and heredity, and also worked with a lot of neuroscientists and neurological doctors, I always made sure I had to be careful, because that also could be a health condition. You know what I mean? You got to make sure you aren't having a stroke. It could be some sort of something going on with the brain. Okay, so I had to kind of like do the check mark to make sure I was healthy. My limbs feel okay, any tingling on either side, in my face, everything okay? Do I feel my tongue? Are my eyes, am I seeing properly? Am I getting any ringing in the ears? You know, I just do the check, and I do this kind of check just to kind of keep everything on the up and up, because you want to make sure that things that you're experiencing aren't based on health conditions that can come with it. Okay. And I'm very Sagittarius like that. Like I always like to verify things. That's why when I share these things with you, y'all, all this stuff is literally things that I vet out with myself. So I'm getting lights, like purple and pink lights when I close my eyes. And it's not all the time, but it's like shooting purple and pink lights. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm getting these light spectrums, and it's generally in the higher frequency, because pink is the highest cosmic frequency, and purple is high, you know, a high in the tier, the violets, you know what I mean? So I'm getting those light frequencies, and I'm traveling back. And I noticed that, because the Zoomies knew about this, but I should have mentioned this, because right before we reached Sao Paulo, the car broke down, but it was an electrical breakdown, meaning this poor car, y'all. Brazil has terrain, though, is buck wild, and driving to Brazil is like driving through Frogger. You know, it's wild. That's why I say not everybody should drive through Brazil, but I'm just saying it was buck wild. So the car, I didn't, hindsight is 2020, I realized the car had only turned off. Now, mind you, I get a call from Melissa telling me that there's electrical issues going on off in the States, that you guys had some sort of electrical disruption. Now, mind you, I just get this. So Melissa tells me, I think An told me too, hey, there's like this craziness. They grounded all the flights, anything happening in Brazil and so on. I was like, nothing's happening here. I said, all the flights are a go. Argentina's everything in South America is a go. They aren't experiencing that. And she was like, check. So I checked, everything was great. So I just, you know, we talked about it and so on. But then when I'm driving, 2 hours before we get to our target, which is Sao Paulo, to go back because I got to fly out, 2 hours before, remember the light frequency I'm talking about, the purple and pink light has shot through my head like maybe an hour before. Then I stopped for a minute, and then my whole dash on my car is totally like zoned out, like aliens, and the car wouldn't start. Now, in my rational mind, I'm saying to myself, oh, I probably just drove too much. Maybe it's the car, but it's a new car. It's a new rental car. There's nothing wrong with it. But in my mind, I was like, okay, maybe I drove too crazy. And now I got to figure out how to get them to tow me 2 hours out of the city, because I'm 2 hours out of Sao Paulo. I'm not even in Sao Paulo. And then try to get us safe, because we got mad luggage in the car. Okay. So I'm not able to be rational then because I'm in mommy mode, because I got babies with me, you know, my children with me, those are my babies, and I'm driving this way. I got to make sure that I get us to a point. My proficiency with Portuguese is pretty good, but remember, explaining everything in Portuguese when you still have a limitation of expressing certain things, I got to take time and saying things in Portuguese to be able to convey that you got to come get me and you got to tow the car and you got to tow us back. Okay. So needless to say, we got back perfectly fine. Okay. There was some glitches in that craziness, but I had to realize after the fact that with that light frequency, I think I did something with my flux capacitor, which I think was totally activated with the car. And I've talked about, many of you heard me having contact with so-called aliens and the others from, you know, from the other galactic spaces, that a lot of times when we had contact, the batteries in the car would die. And we talked about this a couple times. I talked about it years before. I had been out with my birthday with my friend. We were out and we lost time. We don't know how we got to, you know, my man's place. And we had no clue. He thought we just showed up. We lost 2 hours to 2 hours and something minutes. The place was only 15 minutes away. We were supposed to meet up with the guys. And both of our phones, her phone blew up and mine died. My battery died. And the car was fine, but everything else blew up. There were other times when the car battery would die out of the blue when you have contact, any form of contact where they come around. So there's always some sort of disruption. If there's electromagnetic frequency, that pulse wave that comes in, that's not ordinary. And I liken to this purple and pink light as now, after the fact, me being exposed and my technology, my flux capacitor in my body turning on and literally, oh, sorry. I have company. Literally turning on. Okay. And disrupting my batteries. Okay. So needless to say, started to travel back. Many of you know, big up to the Zombies. They were kind of on with me while I flew. I love that they kept me company some of the way. I had to drive, you know, I had to come through. I flew from Brazil, went into Colombia, and then went into Mexico. Okay. That was my route and so on. But what I noticed is that when I came back home, is that normally when you come back home, you have access to only your dome's criteria, environment. Oh, Bridget, stop FleurBrun. I'm one of your regulars, but not so regular listeners, and want to show you some love and graduate to you for sharing your beautiful insight on us. Oh, thank you, Bridget. Thank you, Mama. I appreciate it. Yeah, the phone in New Orleans did the same, right, Selma, when we were at the conference. So, you want me to sing? I'm not a singer. I can't sing. You hear me sing, it's not gonna be, it's gonna be a frog. So what happened is that when I came back, I assumed that when I came back that I would access my regular terrain, and I am now accessing all of the different realms that I didn't even have access to before. And this is now going on another day, and I realized that my flux capacitor has now activated, and I now have access outside the domes. I have access to all of the domes I cross simultaneously, and makes me think that there's some sort of translucency. Remember, it's plasma. The more petrified the dome is, the more petrified the plasma is. When you become faster in speed, it melts the plasma. Plasma becomes more permissible, more permeable. But I realized that my flux capacitor has literally turned on, and I'm going to talk about some of the things that goes along with what are some of the criteria of a type of, according to the movie, what is needed in the flux capacitor. So in the movie, if many of you watch with Michael J. Fox in any one of the movies that you watch with Doc. Doc is the scientist that created the traveling car, which you'll see in a lot of, back in the days, you go to Universal. Can you see me? Y'all put a 13 or you guys can't see me, can you? Oh my God, this is crazy. Can you guys see me? You can. Oh my God, that was so freaky. Y'all, I don't know what happened. I saw a flash with like an image and I don't know what it was. And then all of a sudden the phone said, "Frup," and just would not turn back on. The battery's fine. I got 68%. Yo, that's buck wild. Okay, you guys can see me now. Okay. Holy crap. When I said plutonium, is it when I said plutonium they did that? I think it's when I said plutonium, y'all. I think it is. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to continue because I don't want it to do it again. Okay, just let me know because the only way, okay. All right. So in the movie Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox, he was the young man. He was like friends with like a really weirdo scientific guy, you know, like an old mad scientist that's always doing experiments in his garage or what have you in his barn. So he had created a car that ran on plutonium, but it was with a flux capacitor on it. Okay. And the plutonium was the metal. Now he was, you know, there were like terrorists chasing them because he was stealing plutonium from like terrorist cells. I don't know if you guys remember. Remember he was the doc was like running away from, and they ended up, I don't want to tell you the movie because if you haven't seen it, but you remember that? Can you guys hear me? Okay. It's a really good movie. And why I say it's good for you to watch it, it's weird. You know, it's really doing some weirdness. Okay. It's a really good movie. And you can watch it with your children too. This is one of the movies that's kind of fun to watch with your little ones, okay? Because me and their dad watch with our little ones. And they love it. They love it. They love the movie. Okay, so plutonium is needed. So he would have to get plutonium and he would steal it from like terrorist cells or try to do exchange, okay? And plutonium metal is kind of like silver, but when it's exposed to oxygen, it turns to like a yellow or olive green. I don't know if that matters, but I just kind of looked that up. And on this, which I think is very interesting, because why I bring up the Trump thing also is that Trump represents 8, right? He's always represented by 8. I forgot why he's does anyone know why he's yeah, he stole it from the Russians. Thank you, Scotty. Scotty, remember, he stole the plutonium from the Russians. Scotty, you're so right. Okay. But do you remember why Trump is represented by 88? I don't remember, but in order for this time machine to work, they had to go 88 miles per hour for the flux capacitor to work. Did you hear me? They had to go 88 miles per hour for the flux capacitor to work. I think it's kind of interesting because as my technology started to work, the flux capacitor, it's interesting that Trump is like being pushed out and he was almost assassinated and all of these false flags are happening. Like, I feel like his representation is the Trump Towers. Remember we talked about, I told you he's a Trojan horse, okay? That he is literally resonating at the 88 frequency. And that is the frequency required for the flux capacitor to work. Because we think it's miles per hour, but it's a frequency thing. It's a resonance thing. So his being pushed out, he is the representation of the 88. That's what I think. Because when I saw it, I was kind of like weirded out. I was like, why is that? Why am I having access to this technology in me, which I liken to be the flux capacitor, and Trump is representing that 88, right? I think, y'all. I hope I'm right, right? And then because, okay, so they say that the 88 miles per hour was for them to achieve temporal displacement. Now, temporal displacement is for your body to for everything to departicleize and like shatter out into the like quantum detangle, like for the quantum field to no, for to departicleize. That's the quantum. That's the temporal displacement, like to departicleize. You ever see like on Star Trek? He's like, Scotty, beam me up, and like they beam them up. They always triangulate them to find out their location, and then once they lock on them, they beam them up and they departicleize, and then they're particleized back. They become particleized back on the ship. Okay, and Biff looks like Trump. That's another residue resonating with Trump, because remember they talked about when it came back in the past again, Biff had become remember he had an old casino and he was running the town, Biff, and he was always likened to be Trump. Very good remembrance. So the 88 miles per hour was how we were able to achieve temporal displacement. What I said is that when I came back to the United States, I noticed that there isn't any more localizing to my dome. I am accessing outside of my dome and in multiple domes I'd not even accessed. Listen, I'm getting beings that I think are outside, somewhere outside the firmament, outside the firmament. Like I saw a being that was native. They were tall, and he had this woman. She looked almost like one of those native Aztecian women. Her hair was very straight, very Asiatic looking, dark. She had like the thing on her nose, like the sign on her nose, and they were big. They weren't small. And he had her in like a wooden kind of like pen. I know it's crazy, but I'm just saying I'm seeing beings that I hadn't had access to. And when I was traveling through Mexico also, I feel like I was accessing beings that were existing not only outside into those domes, but in other time space continuums. Like these were I was accessing different times. Like it wasn't in 2024, 2016, 2012. No, these were times that were like maybe way before, where maybe the last 3 cataclysms existed. I just was seeing beings that were from different times. And I was wondering why I'm getting access to this, but because of the 88, which represents Trump, and me traveling and getting activated, my technology, this flux capacitor in me being activated, it literally was being turned on, and now the domes are now permeable. Plasma isn't petrified anymore. I'm able to go inside the different domes, and I don't even know if I'm in domes anymore, but the beings inside are literally from other time frames. That's how I knew it was a flux capacitor. That's why I likened it. I'm not saying, when I'm using that, I'm just using the term because I'm likening to that. Okay. It's not, I'm not using it as like definitive or concrete. I'm using it as I'm getting ringing. Hold on, y'all. I'm getting a message in this ear. Hold on. There's weird things happening on this. Maybe because I'm talking about it. It's very strange. It's in my ear now. Okay. All right, it's gone. So I would love your opinions, because remember, this is just stuff I'm kind of getting as I'm going on. Okay. And then, so the plutonium is important because I had to look up, I was like, okay, so the flux capacitor ran on the plutonium, but I was like, how could my body be likened to the flux capacitor? Where is the plutonium? Do we have plutonium in us? But apparently we do. And the large portion of plutonium in the body of adults is in the bone or in the liver. Listen to what I say. The large portion of plutonium, the little bit that we have in our body, is in adults. It's in the bone and it's in the liver. Plutonium is deposited mainly in the liver and the skeletal. I thought that was interesting. And then it's calculated in the body. Now, this is what's bugged out, because remember we did the whole P. Diddy, like remember the whole Sean Combs, they were showing his huge mansion in Florida and Miami, and then it kept showing this one thing with the 4 X's. Remember? I was showing you the 4 X's. I was like, that's represented as X. And then you see X and Twitter, all these X's represented it. It's interesting because with this calculation of the plutonium, it shows up as 10.3, 10 to the 3rd power, in between 10 to the 5th power, which is atoms. So what is 10 to the 3rd? What's in between 10 to the 3rd and 10 to the 5th? It's 10 to the 4th power. Now, I don't know if that matters, but the first thing I thought when I saw this, look, I can't make this up. See? Okay. Because I wrote it down. I took it down and I wrote it down. It has been calculated that the human body always carries a base load of plutonium 10 to the 3rd, they would split the minus, to 10 to the 5th. And I thought it was kind of interesting that that would be 10 to the 4th. Like, could that be why they always have that X showing up? And when P. Diddy, they kept focusing on the 4 X's. Okay? And the 4 X's is the 4. Remember the 44,000, the 4,000, the 4 is always represented as that. I don't know. Just let me know if you think. Okay? So I would love to know your opinions because I'm kind of drawing stories and I'm coming on with you where I haven't fully definitively broke things down. It's just like I'm brainstorming as I talked to you right before I came here. Okay, so the capacitor, now I looked and said, okay, so why is the capacitor that they show us, oh, where is it? Oh, I didn't show it. Okay, you see it on my pin. It looks like a Y. Okay, so I'm saying, okay, if I'm looking at these X's and it's represented by X, would the capacitor only have an X? So would it only have a Y looking thing or would it have an X? I just asked the question. And then when I'm looking, I found out the capacitors connected line to line are X's. Capacitors, also called line to neutral, which we always talk about the 0 point, right? Capacitors. Those connected from the line to line are called, those connected to line to the ground are called Y capacitors. Y capacitors, okay? And also referred to line bypass capacitors. X capacitors are used for differential mode EMI filtering. Now, I know this doesn't matter. Some of you guys, I know the sun stars in here, you're way more into the capacitors. You probably know this language more than I, maybe engineers, maybe those into like mechanical things. I would love to hear your opinion as far as what you think that is. Because I kind of just took it down. It says safety capacitor standards because a shorted Y capacitor could lead to the danger of an electrical shock. Y capacitors are held to a higher operating standard compared with X capacitors. During the certification process, 2 keys tests performed are the impulse and endurance tests. These are done, I'm sorry, y'all, I'm reading really slow. These are done to verify that the XY capacitor can withstand 10 impulses of alternations. Listen what I said, 10. That's again the X, 10 impulses of alternated polarities. I don't know, guys, sun stars, you're better in this. I don't know if any sea stars, you're really kind of qualified to speak on this. I just thought I'd take those notes down to talk about that. Because why would they name capacitors after the very thing that makes us men and women? And then kind of liken it to how they're able to activate it, and what one is line to line, which is the X, and one is line to ground, which is the Y. I don't know if you guys can kind of break that down. I don't know. I would love your opinion. This is something I'm not vetted in. I can't qualify it, but I just wanted to take that down. We can short out as an electrical shortage, and higher frequency needs to have correct weights so not to blow lights or within. So interesting how seems to all apply. Thank you, KD. That makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's very important that it came up for a reason, and I think we have to pay attention to that. All right, so all this to say, and I'm not going to go too long on this. I would love to hear your opinions, and again, I wanted to share this with you because if I'm qualifying jumping domes as me accessing different frequency and vibrational qualifying energetics, right, that are influencing me and activating, there's something that happened when I was exposed to different visual geometrical shapes that were on beyond my natural perceptional view just in my ordinary life, and then the photonic lights that came along with it, which I think Joel Brookman talked about that as well. Because when we project our reality with our thoughts, wavelengths of our thoughts, we create the photonic lights that express things, bounce, our reality back to us. Okay. But what I did by jumping domes too quickly, fast, and doing it in ways that are not normal, and I was in alignment with it. Remember, I'm a contactee, I come from a certain background, but there is something that happened to me within that time frame that unlocked my technology, and now I have access to beings, energetic beings, domes beyond the United Fakes. So I don't know how this is going to show up. I don't know what kind of, I haven't really socialized much since I've been back in the States, and I won't be back in the States that long. I got to go back outside the country for a little bit, but I don't know what I'm going to experience. Like, does this mean that not only are the beings that are in the astral planes or in my dreamscape that I'm seeing that aren't from here, am I going to start to experience different types of beings out in the residue of my personal life? Like, I haven't really socialized much other than, my personal family. The flux capacitor literally activated, and now it's permeated the different domes into like a plasma, and all these things are bleeding into my reality. Anyway, I thought I'd share it with you. I know it's a nerdy conversation. It's a really nerdy conversation, but many of you know me as a bit of a geek. So I would love all my science geeky people to kind of like add on, like, let me know what's going on. Like, give me an idea of what you think this is or what it means. Like, I'm open and receptive to your opinions, and especially our sun stars. You're way more qualified a lot of this, like, especially mechanics. It'd be interesting to know how this is, how it relates to the 8888 1624 strand activation, huge mind thing. Have you jumped through the holes? Well, Kate, I really feel like because I'm going in, like I'm quantum leaping, because I went so quickly through these different domes, and I was activated, and also the Pequins in Argentina contacted me, and that came with the whole wall opening. I talked about that. There was so many things that happened in the south of South America. It was mind blowing. And I always usually stay in the north. I generally don't go so far south. But I was trying to contact the woman. Remember I told you I was trying to contact the Antarctica Afro woman? That's Antarctica looks like the woman with the Afro. I was trying to contact her. She never contacted me. But I was contacted by Osayan, an Orisha, which I don't really get down with Orisha, Osayan. And then he told me where to go. And then the penguins talked to me. Penguins. I hope I pronounced it correctly. So it was interesting. And then I had a level contact on Tuesday before I left Bahia, but that was more personalized. Like certain things, I wouldn't say it was like telepathic and vision based, but remember the beings there, they told me they would contact me on Tuesday. That's a whole nother conversation because it's so personal. I don't really share that, but I had contact with the beings I'm always in contact with in Bahia. But they told me something would happen on Tuesday, and it did. And the Osayan came up. Osayan is a nature-based Orisha male that I've never known about. And he was the one who called me to a specific place in South America. I didn't even know to go there. He was the one who told me to go there. And it's interesting. I was expecting to get information from the Antarctica, woman, but I got contact with them. So maybe it was them I was supposed to speak to or be in contact with. Maybe they were the ones I was supposed to be in contact with because of Osayan. You guys can look up the Orisha. I didn't know him. And then my girlfriend's mom had a huge statue of Osayan in her house, which I did. Like I said, it's very surreal when you get these wonderful, amazing things that occur. Because, I talk about the Orishas, like, what did the Orishas do for you? What did your Orishas do? I was talking mad smack about the Orishas. But a Orisha contacted me and told me the location, y'all, down to the place that I went. I don't talk about it because I don't want to bring too much heat to the place, but the Zombies knew about it. And I told the Zombies that the Osayan contacted me to go to this one specific place. And I thought I would get in contact with that Afrocentric queen, and I didn't. It was those little elf beings, and they were really quite amusing. They were like, does she know? Does she know? Does she know? Does she know? It was really interesting. I've never heard anything like that in my life, and I'm mentally healthy, y'all. Let me put my little FYI there. I do 0 drugs. I haven't done any drugs. I do 0 mushrooms, ayahuasca, all this stuff. I haven't had to do anything like that to ever have contact. I have very clean, connective contact with beings. Always. From a little girl, you can hear it from my mom. My mom has such stories to tell from when I was a baby. Okay? So it's totally different. And this has been ongoing since a child, since a baby. But the contact is different now, like as an adult woman, and it's starting to become more and more tangible. It's less, before it was kind of like I would get contact and it would show up in physical realms, but it would be random. Now it's purposeful, and I will always be led to the exact place. Like everything is like timed, like everything's more tangible. Okay. It's very interesting. But I'm healthy. I'm psychologically well. Listen, y'all, I always tell people, oh, she's the guy who said I'm schizophrenic. There isn't anybody schizophrenic who could go and travel to 5 countries with their children safely, honorably, sanely, talk to people. I'm rational. Sorry, I have stuff on my lips. I'm rational. Okay. I'm drug-free, alcohol-free. You know what I mean? I'm not having any kind of crazy diabolical sex, at least not yet. That's another conversation. I'm going to share that tonight with the Zombies. There's something else that happened, but I can't tell you guys here online because it's too much, you know. And there might be children. I got to be careful what I share. It's very interesting. But you can kind of guess, right? I'm not going to leave you standing, but you could kind of guess. There's something else that happened. And it's he said, we grown. And it's happened again, like when I came back. Yeah. I don't know. That it wasn't anything that happened to me before. I haven't ever had that kind of interaction ever, physically. So it makes me think, and also, without being too graphic, I talked about us being, for some of us, I don't want to say me personally, I'm in some sort of cryo state. I've seen myself get out. I've gotten out of the cryo state. I'm in some sort of cryo state where I'm in, many of you are there too, but I can't assume it's everybody because some people are NPCs. We don't even know who's real. Some of you could be reptiles. I don't know everybody. I'm just saying for the majority of people that I know, we're in a cryo state and we're kept there and we're having this simulated experience of a simulated Earth. We wake up in different layers and levels, kind of like Inception, okay? But in it itself, when I woke up last time outside the dome, not the dome, my cryo state, I woke up naked and I was in a room. I wasn't in a big spaceman, like my cryo bed was inside of a room that I'm familiar with, which is my room. And I talk about that all the time. And there was a male lying next to me with he had stuff all over the side lying next to, I could tell he was lying next to my pod. And when I woke up, I realized when I looked at him, every single male that I've ever been attracted to looks like him. I don't want to bug you out because this is going into the quantum entanglement field. So every man, I have a very specific type. Some of you who know me personally, you already know what it is because you saw my type. But I have such a chronic type, it doesn't even make sense. I don't know where the type came from. But when I woke up out of the cryo state and I saw the man that was lying next to my cryo bed, he was the man that I have always picked. His phenotype is what I'm picking out in this simulation in every single scenario. Every single scenario. So I realized, oh my God, this is my partner. But partnership is not what you think either, because it's something else to it too. And I talked about that there was a woman next to me. Her pod had been moved. So personally, I don't want, because this is a long story. I didn't tell some of you know it already. I don't want to linger too long, but the pods, there was apparently a flood and some pods were destroyed. And what I liken is that my pod and this other young lady's pods, they were moved into a specific space, like a personal space, my room, where they were to be monitored. And one of my partners, which is the male, that is the male of my dreams, apparently, because this is the reason why I'm picking all the same males in this firmament, in this simulation. He was watching out and he was sleeping. You could tell he'd been sleeping there for days, maybe worried. Okay. And the young lady that was with me, we wake up naked. We're inside of the pods, but naked. Okay. I look very similar, just smaller, more fit. I'm not busty. So it looks like in this simulation, the things that I wanted to make about myself, I have more of an athletic build. And I personally think, I don't know this, but when I kind of woke up from the pod, I don't think about it because it's not something that's relative there. But I realized that I made myself look into more of what I want, like more busty, more voluptuous looking, like, I'm sorry. I made myself visually in this simulation look more of the things I wanted to expand on, because in that world, I look very similar, just same facial features, same complexion, kind of hair. My hair is similar, but my body is more, not muscular, more like athletic. I don't have these big, round. Do you understand what I mean? I don't want to be graphic. You understand, right? So I chose an avatar that's more expounded and probably something I thought I lacked. Okay. So in this realm, I look like, but when I woke up in that realm, we were naked. And I think I told you before that when I woke up with one of the women, she looked like a woman, but she had a penis. And it kind of messed me up a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all. She looked just like a girl, but she had a penis. And in that world, I don't know that I was shocked, but I did look and I felt a little vulnerable being naked. It's weird. I had my body parts. I had a yoni, I could tell. And she was female. She was very petite, just a lunar looking female, very petite, but she had a male apparatus. And when we put clothes on, we just took this little bit of like a clay thing, a little thing, and put it on like here, and it created clothing all over us. It literally melded clothing on our entire body, like a uniform. So it was like a little piece of like, I don't know, like clay or something. It felt like clay, and we just put it on here, and it literally created clothing on our entire body. Okay. I think I told you guys about that before. But yeah, I don't know. And makes me also think, is that why they're generating all this trans stuff? Is it because of that over there? Because that exists? Like, I don't know. I can't tell you. Why I mention this is because I personally know I'm in a cryo state and I'm living in this thing, and we are underneath water. We're in some sort of like, I would say almost like the ship is like a Nebuchadnezzar. You know how in Matrix, the Nebuchadnezzar was in the bowels of the sewers? We're in a ship. That's why I think that whole thing of the simulation, we project these things, and these are the truth of where we are. We're under the water. We're in some sort of like, our ship looks almost like it's got terrain in there and grass and terraformed to be inside that looks, like, how you have grass and so on, but it looks almost like a submarine. So the Nebuchadnezzar, the first time I saw the Nebuchadnezzar, not the Nebuchadnezzar, or the thing that was underneath, right? Underneath the like an ark, yeah, underneath the city when they had the Matrix, it was so familiar to me. But we're living in this simulated. I don't know why I'm allowed to wake up every once in a while from my cryo state. It only happened a few times, and it's not long. It's a very short period of time, but I go to sleep and I'm just back in. But I feel like why I share this with you is because the male who I'm attached to, there's two people I'm attached to, but the male I'm attached to, the one that I pick in all of the simulation, I always pick him. I always pick his look. I always pick a man that looks like him in a simulation, that he showed, like even the, that's how I know I'm creating this. Even in Colombia, like flying over, going through Bogota, the same male shows up at the airport. The same look, and he stares at me. That's what I'm saying. I always tell you, like, my type is my type, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's because it's part of the simulation, and I created this being in my world because he's reminiscent of the man that I'm attached to outside the simulation. Because he's everywhere. So weird. So maybe your type, y'all, is because the people that you're attached to outside of here could very well be look like the things you're generating here. I don't know. Mine is, and he's interfacing with me physically right now. I don't want to get too deep into it. Like, I don't want to be perverted because some of you are not mature enough. So I know most of you are, but some of you are not mature enough to hear this conversation because the intimacy and stuff, I think that's too much for this kind of social media. I'll discuss it later. I kind of talked about the Zoomies a little bit, but I'm experiencing physicality with him. And I don't know if that's what he's supposed to be doing with me while I'm in the simulation. I don't know. And someone else is experiencing it out of the group. So I don't know if he's supposed to, we're acting, we're doing stuff together. And I don't know if that's supposed to be happening while I'm inside of the cryo state. It wasn't happening before. It happened when I left. And it could be, maybe I'm close to reset. So maybe he's just excited for me to wake up. I don't know. But it's him. I could smell him, I feel him. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I just had, anyway, it's too much information. You know what I mean? I'm trying to keep it PG because it's before 12 midnight, y'all. Sometimes I could get a little saucy and a little too much, because I don't really have a bar. So I don't want to, I don't know that he's a twin flame. I don't know that he's a twin flame. I know that that is my partner, but he's not the only one. I don't want to go into that. He's not the only one, but he's the partner. Like, you ever see, what's the one, Wheels of Time? Do you guys know Wheels of Time? You ever see Wheels of Time? Anybody? Let me know if you saw Wheels of Time. Did you? Anybody? No? Yeah, okay. Remember Wheels of Time, the women are assigned a warder? Like, he's water to her, and he's the one who protects her and takes care of her. He's always with her, like, even when she takes baths. Like, it's like semi-intimate, but not intimate. It could be intimate, right? And then you saw another one who had a warder that lost their partner, their link, and then they ended up having like a threesome because the two warders will link. I know it sounds crazy. I'm not doing this in real life. No, I'm just telling you. Like, I'm talking about the show. Like, the other one had, one of their mates had passed, so the three of them got together. It's kind of like that's how it is in that world. That's why I think that they put restrictions on us relationship here, because they don't want us remembering what we are out there. We don't really see relationships as like bondage there. It's a bind. It's a bond. It's a long-term bond. Like, that male that was sleeping next to me, I've known him. I smell that man, and I've known him. I don't even, it's a smell that I've always known. It's something I've always known this man, like, in every single way. So he isn't a foreigner to me. Like, he's in my cells. That's how much I know this person. But it's almost like those are life partners. But it's not that you stay with someone to bind to them. It's just something different. It's not the same. Like, the way I feel when I saw him, it wasn't like, you know how you get married here, or you get married and you always feel like you have to like uphold to like your duties, or you have, at least that's how I felt as a wife. When you always have to, sometimes you have to kind of sacrifice certain things for the other person. Like, it isn't like that. The way I felt with him was more of like I can't explain, like it's a bond. It's a bond, but it's like, it's not like for sex. It's not selfish. It's not, he has to have me, I have to have him. It's not that. It's something else. It's something else. It's something better, healthier. It's not possession though. You know what I mean? I can't, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's something beyond this. And I think that's why they make it so difficult for us in relationships and we don't do well here, because the way we mate over there is healthier. Is healthier. He isn't my only partner, but he's the one who watches over me. He's the one that makes sure I'm safe. And that's the one who's doing things with me physically in my pod. And I wake up. Yeah, so it's him. But so I think we need to reevaluate like relationships, because they're making it wrong. Like the way that they make it is wrong here. It's not the same. We mate with these partners. It's different. It's not, it's like it's a bond. It's just a bond. It's not like you're a slave to it either. It's not like you can't love someone else or be with someone else. It's not that. It's just something different. It's a very natural bond. Like when I see him and I've smelt him, I was around him, it was like a bond. Like he's my partner. Maybe that's why I always say the name mate. Maybe that's why I always said mate. He's like my mate. But every man that I've chosen, and y'all who know me, if you see my ex-husband and you see the guy I was with, they look just alike. I have a type and it's a typecast. I can't break it. And anywhere I go, my type wants me. So it's something I'm co-creating. My type, I'm his type. Like I just went through the airport and my type saw me saw me down the hallway and nearly broke his neck. It's crazy because my type is my type. I'm typecasting it. It's me creating it in this matrix, and all those types that I'm geoengineering are him. It's all him. I mean, so I think, and I'm not the only one having, and maybe some of you want to share this, and you don't have to, but some of you may be having like sexual experiences and it's not in physical, and it's not an incubus and succubus. I'm not having sex with random people. I'm nobody. Okay. But I'm saying like there's another person that I know who's also having physical contact with the other. So I don't know if this is part of waking us up. Is it like a reminder to wake us up? Like what? I don't know. But they're physically having intimacy with us. Like they're intimate with us. And it's full. It's not partial. It's not a wet dream. I thought it was at first. No, it's full. And the only way that I felt it was outside of the dome. That's when it started, but it hasn't stopped. Have you been experiencing that, Marilyn? I think maybe some of you are. And maybe because I didn't think it was, maybe at this time, it could be part of the waking up process. Have you ever watched Inception? I don't know if you get a chance to watch Inception. Is it Inception? No, is it Inception? Yeah, I think it's Inception. Watch how you wake up in layers, because you can't just wake up out of the simulation. There's layering effects, and you have to qualify to wake up out of the simulation. Maybe that's part of the process. Like we see sex as something different. Maybe we see something different. Maybe, am I a breeder? I don't know. I could be. It could be something different. Maybe it's a way of waking us up, like reminding us of something outside of here. I don't know. But it can't just be that it's me. There's a couple people that it's happening to. So I have to think maybe this is a process. And it's not just a female, it's a male who's experiencing this. So it's not just like, I can understand I'm a female, so maybe I'm a breeder, but why is the male experiencing it? Could he be a breeder too? Maybe. But it's something happening. So I think at this time, because we're so close to reset and we wake up out of the simulation, y'all, there's going to be a day where if you guys are in the same thing as I am, you're going to wake up one day and you're going to wake up in your pod. And it's going to, it'll be like Freaky Friday. You ever see Freaky Friday? Waking up in a different body, okay? Some of you are gonna wake up in your pod. And you need to be prepared for that. Because the time I woke up out of the pod, it was random. And I don't know why they woke me up, something I had to do. But this one day, and I know I know the part of this process, we leave before full reset. That's why I think they're doing so much in the simulation. And I don't think the simulation is meant to trap you here, but if you aren't qualified and you haven't graduated to an awareness and a qualification to wake up, it's just going to keep you stuck here until you qualify to wake up. So it's like you have to be in a certain kind of energetic mindset to wake up. Now the psychopaths and stuff that are here, I think they just messed up so much they don't want to wake up, and they found a way to geoengineer the world to make the landscape, their desires, everything they want. So all those psychopaths here, they're like parasites now. They want to stay down here. They're not trying to wake up. Okay, or maybe they lost their bodies up because they did crazy things and they basically took their bodies off of the machine. Maybe they're stuck here like triple OGs, like, you know, so maybe that's why they're here. So I think it's interesting that before reset, you're going to be as challenged as you possibly could be, because I think the only way that you'll be unhooked or wake up out of the simulation is you would have to be in a mindset that qualifies you. It's almost like a test of a captain, or, you know, you're getting test on your qualifications to be someone in a certain, you know, ranking. You know what I mean? So I just think it's very, very interesting that that might be the case. So I think if you're still caught up, like, I think there's layers to this, and I think you eventually can come out of it, the simulation. But I think the simulation might be literally a program to develop one to higher states of capacity. Maybe you have to lead people. Maybe this is a training program we all come to be led. Maybe, because I know I come here personally, and I know I come here and I help, and I know I'm coming here for specific people that got caught up a little bit in here. But I think that just could be, you know, part of the training process. Like someone gets caught up and you, like, you know, they weren't supposed to be here that long, and I got to go get my team. But just, you know, I just thought I'd share that. So anyway, y'all, I know I kept you a long time. You know, give me opinions. Let me know what you think. I'm open and receptive. I think a lot of people too would love to hear your opinions as well. To see if you're experiencing some of these things. What do you think about jumping domes and breaking the dome, kind of making it permeable? I'm accessing beings outside of here. So something I did, probably going through the multiple domes and triggering myself and rising up. I think that's what I'm meant to do. I've always said, now at this point, I understand and overstand that I'm kind of like a Moses figure. I don't think I'm maybe one. I may be one of many, but I'm like a Moses, like a female Moses. And you know how Moses cracked open the Red Sea? I think I just did it. I think I might have cracked open the domes. You know what I mean? I think that all energetically actually is true. I think it just, the story kind of develops in different ways. So I think me going and doing this and sharing this was me being a Moses figure, and those who are aligned with it and connected to that, it's me opening up that seal, that 7th seal. Because the 7th seal is how you get out of here. The 6 is the dome, and 7 is out. And it's interesting that Joel Pruckman talked about the 7 circuits of the brain. And I talk about 6 being the ceiling and 7 being outside of the dome. So it's interesting she said that. I thought that was so fascinating, because I never connected the 7 circuits of the brain being forms of activation. Like she talked about the reptilian brain is the first one. Then you had the insectilian brain, which is the second. Then she talked about the avian brain being the third. You got to listen to it. Like 7 chakras. So it's all interconnected. And like, are you still in your base chakra? You know what I mean? You got to get through these layers of the 7 circuits, or the 7 seals, right? So why is it always the seals, the 7 seals, 7 circuits, 7 chakras? It's all interrelated, right? So anyway, I could talk to you for days. So we're going to kind of talk about tonight. And if you've had an experience, like, I don't know if I should call the being out there like your twin flame. They might actually be like your water, like that movie. I don't know. Very interesting. But we'll kind of talk about it tonight, because I think the intimacy thing that's happening, if it's happening to multiple people simultaneously, it could be part of the process. And what we perceive to be intimacy is something that's different there. Like I said, relationships are different there. You could feel it. It's not, you aren't tethered to anyone. It's a choice thing. It's like a connection. It's like a bond. You know what I mean? Anyway. All right, y'all. I will see you tonight. It's like 2:36 here. It was nice talking to you. I hope some of this conversation was helpful, you know. And we'll kind of research it tonight on Zoom and discuss it. Okay, so thank you very much. And I'm gonna be going. Peace.